This is one thing that I look forward to each month because we get to see what great things are happening throughout our region. So I'm going to turn it over to Andover to give the briefing, and Les Magnus from the city of Andover should be online.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks for the opportunity to share some things about Andover's growth and development over the past few years. I think Nick's going to allow me here to share my screen. I should be there now. Thanks
And
again. We're all connected. A few years ago, we did a comprehensive plan for the city of Andover, and the goal of that plan was for Andover to be the best place to live, work, learn, and play. You can see from these tiles on this screen to the left there, kind of the typical residential subdivision in Andover, a lot of open spaces and large houses, places to work like the Kansas Medical Center, great schools. The YMCA has a great branch in Andover. We have great parks, 13th Street Sports Park, where we hold all of our baseball and softball games. And down in the lower right corner there is the Capitol Federal Amphitheater that we opened a few years ago. We've hosted many concerts, and most recently the Wichita Music Theater is using the amphitheater this summer. Andover came from very humble beginnings. Like a lot of towns in Kansas, it started on the railroad. It was halfway between Augusta and Wichita, so it was a place for the steam engine to take on water and pick up passengers. This map is from 1888, so it gives you an idea of that spot on the map. Soon became a city in 1882. The first 160 acres was platted by a surveyor who worked for the railroad. Many years went by. 1957, the city was incorporated with a population of 166. Today, our population estimate, 13,278, was the latest I could find in 2018, but you can see that the rapid growth of the population from its beginning in 1957 to current. Currently, the city has grown from 160 acres to about 10.6 square miles. We're bordered on the west by Sedgwick County, and most of that western border is shared with the city of Wichita. Great places to live. You can see there are many alternatives here for housing. The upper left is the typical suburban home with a 3-car garage. Sunstone Apartments in the upper center was opened a few years ago and boasts occupancy rates in the high 90s. I'll point out on the upper right is a new housing product in the Heritage subdivision. It is a high density single family residential with lots in the 3,500 square foot range. Below is the sprawling suburban Flint Hills National residence. And in the bottom right is another new product in that Heritage subdivision, patio homes. The great places to work. We have several banks, some retail, a big Dillon's Marketplace store that is a big driver for our local 1% retailer sales tax that supports street improvement projects. And we've also got a very nice medical core up on 21st Street with the Kansas Medical Center and several new doctor's offices. Learning, education is very important in Andover. We have 2 high schools, 2 middle schools, and 6 elementary schools. Those schools serve not only Andover residents, but the last I knew, 53% of that student population came from Sedgwick County. Our park systems, we've got a great variety of things to do in recreation and leisure. Out here at Central Park, where City Hall is located, we have a lake that has handicapped accessible fishing docks that were built with a partnership with the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks many years ago. We have a lodge building in the upper center photo there that's available for rentals and meetings. Those are all located in the Andover Central Park. I mentioned earlier the Andover 13th Street Sports Park is where many of the organized sports games are played. We have a public golf course and 2 private golf courses, Flint Hills National and Teradyne. So we think we've covered all the bases there on the great quality of life attributes. So to move into transportation, the city of Andover lies on the US 54-400 corridor, just east of the K96 interchange. It's the most significant east-west corridor in southwest south central Kansas. We have about 24,000 vehicles a day passing through Andover on Highway 54, and about 2,000 of those trips are truck freight trips. We did a corridor study back in 2012, and one of the projections from that corridor study was that there would be 85,000 vehicles per day in 2040. That's a huge growth. That's over 3 times the current vehicles per day. There are about 8,000 workers that commute back and forth between Andover and Wichita each day, and about 4,000 students. Those students are not only USD 385 students, but Butler Community College. There's a great influx of students from Wichita into Butler also. This graph is a graph I pulled out of a WAMPO study for public transit. It gives you an idea of those commuter trips. That 4,756 workers leave Andover to go to the Wichita area for work, and 3,167 come from Wichita into the city of Andover, and there are about 500 that circulate within Andover. This slide's a little hard to look at, but the US 54 corridor, of course, is the most significant transportation route in Andover. The left side of this is 159th Street. That's the Butler-Sedgwick County line. The right side is Prairie Creek Road, and this graphic came from that 2012 US 54-400 corridor study. We've used this document for right-of-way acquisitions for the potential freeway that we've been working very hard to get built in the Ike transportation plan. One of the things that's unique about this corridor alignment and profile is you can see that it has a lot of undulation to it. It's not just an all elevated or below the surface project. It undulates between above 159th Street because of floodplain issues to below Andover Road, back up and matches the existing grade just east of Andover Road, and then over at Prairie Creek Road, again, there is a creek and a floodplain, so it would be an elevated freeway. This is probably the most important transportation project in Andover at this current time. This is a concept that Wichita looked at a few years ago with the K96 and Kansas Turnpike on the left over to 143rd Street on the right. We wholeheartedly support this project, and Andrew from South Central Transportation Coalition has been very helpful in putting that project as a high priority out to the region. That 54 corridor has been the scene of a lot of development over the last 20 years. The Dillon store was one of the first to build on the highway corridor in the late 1990s. They outgrew that store so quickly they moved across the street, still on the highway corridor. Applebee's restaurant out there, Emprise Bank, Andover Crossing Apartments, Ameritrust, Firestone. A lot of the brand names you recognize are out on that highway corridor around the intersection of Andover Road. We've got some new projects out there that are something that's very different to the region. This project is called the Heritage Mixed Use. It is just east of Andover Road on the north side of Highway 54. Mixed use in that it has not only residential but commercial, retail, and service businesses mixed together in the same buildings. Currently, the site that's in color is in design. We think that it will be in construction by August of this year. It is very unusual in that it's more of an urban downtown style of building with walkable blocks and a parking garage. These are elevations of that building, something that's pretty unusual for the suburbs. 5 stories, retail office on the ground floor with 4 stories of apartments above and a parking garage. There's also an apartment development just west of Andover Road on the north side of Highway 54. That's 280 units of multifamily. And some elevations of that 3-story apartment product. So there are a lot of things going on up and down that Highway 54 corridor, and all are being built in such a manner that they will play into the ultimate US 54 400 freeway improvements. In preparation for that heritage project, the city did a traffic study. This red corridor is called Yorktown Parkway. It's a collector street that was built to parallel Andover Road to try to give some relief to that 20,000+ trips per day on Andover Road, because around the Highway 54 intersection in the lower right is Prairie Creek Elementary, the YMCA, the Dillon's Marketplace area, and as you progress north up this corridor, you can see in the center is the USD 385 Central School campus that houses a high school, a middle school, and an elementary school with a brand new tennis competition facility and stadium. That corridor progresses on through the Andover Central Park, where City Hall and the library, amphitheater are located, and finally ends up at 13th Street at the Butler Community College and the Andover 13th Street Sports Park. This is a view of that Yorktown Parkway just as it was opened last year. 4 lanes with a divided landscaped median, 10-foot bicycle pedestrian path on one side, 5-foot pedestrian path on the other side. In the tip for construction next year in 2022, we have improvements to 159th Street. That's the Butler Sedgwick County line between Highway 54 and Central Avenue. This is depicts that 3-lane section that again will have the 5-foot sidewalk on one side and a 10-foot bike ped path on the other. That project came on the heels of the completion of a 159th Street project that built a 3-lane street from Central Avenue up to the Kansas Turnpike and built a new bridge over the Kansas Turnpike that's capable of a 4-lane road section with a 10-foot bike ped path adjacent. Those improvements were just opened up earlier this year. Bicycle pedestrian is a very important component in Andover. We always say that's one of our best investments in recreation and leisure. We have a lot of folks who use our bike paths, not only from Andover proper, but from the region in general. This Redbud Trail project starts in the heart of downtown Wichita, and we've improved it to a 10-foot concrete paved path through Andover here. You see highlighted in yellow, runs from the 159th Street County line over into our 13th Street Sports Park. This is just a shot of a bridge over the creek in our park. 10-foot bike ped. It's a tremendous amount of use. We followed that concrete improvement path project with a gravel improvement project in cooperation with a group called ARTI, Andover Augusta Rail Trail Initiative, to make improvements to the gravel surface all the way out to Highway 54, which together with the concrete is about 6 miles of improved trails within Butler County. There are currently some talks with the city of Augusta and Butler County about continuing that Redbud Trail from Highway 54 over to the city of Augusta, and the Kansas Department of Transportation will be involved in a bridge over Highway 54 that was removed some years ago. Again, bike ped and pedestrian connectivity is very important to the city of Andover. You can see these are our major paths and trail projects. Along with that, we have 5-foot and 8-foot sidewalks within neighborhoods that connect out to make these loops and connections within the city and to the Redbud Trail and sidewalks in the city of Wichita. I'm open for any comments or questions or suggestions you may have. I know several of you are trail riders. I hear from you that you're out on the Redbud Trail. You passed by my personal property. I wave and love to see the use of that trail.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mangus. Do we have any questions at all? I don't hear any questions at this time. Thank you again for the presentation. One of the reasons I like these presentations each month is each and every one of us represent our own communities, our own regions, our own counties. But when you sit down and you're representing yourselves at WAMPO, you have to start thinking regionally. And that's what WAMPO does, is we look regionally. So if we don't know what's going on in the region, it's hard to represent the entire region when we're making decisions on different projects. So briefings like this today and the ones we've had the last couple months are vital for us to take a look at the region and see what kind of projects that are needed out there, because our economic development in the future relies on making sure that we can connect between these different areas. So I want to thank each and every one of you, especially Mr. Mangus today, and everyone that's made the presentation in the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, next item, we're going back to Andrew.